What is going on, guys? Welcome to the video, and this is 5 questions that I told my casual Call of Duty friend to ask me to see how he can improve his gameplay. And I think these answers that I give to these questions are going to be something that you should know and help you as a casual Call of Duty player who wants to improve their game. Let's get started. So out of curiosity, I texted him and said, hey, can you ask me 5 questions that's been on your mind that you would want to know to help improve yourself as a casual Call of Duty gamer? So the 5 questions that he texted was: 1. As far as playstyle, is there any playstyle that can compensate for high ping situations? He asked this question because we are both gamers from Hawaii. We don't have a Call of Duty server that is in our region, therefore our ping is generally higher compared to the rest of the lobby in Call of Duty. Second question is, how do I find the right attachments and know that I'm using the right ones? Third question is, what perks should I be using? Fourth question, how do I avoid COD timing, aka bad COD timing? And the fifth question, what's more of a priority when downing an enemy while I have a down team? Do I try to finish the enemy team, or do I try to help and assist my teammates that are down? So these are the 5 questions that he asked, and I think me giving these answers for these questions, in my opinion, of course, and hopefully that you guys can know something too if you are a casual gamer, that'll help you learn and improve in your gameplay. So the reason why that question of playstyle with the correct ping is very important, because when you are playing as a high ping player, everything that you do in the game, which is hit registration, movements on the server, compared to other players who have lower ping than you, everything is going to be delayed. So if any time you are fighting a low ping player, their shots are going to register first, their bullets are going to register first, their movement is going to register first. That is why I think if you are a high ping player, you need to have an aggressive playstyle. What I mean by aggressive playstyle is that you are going to be taking the fight to them. You are not playing passive, you are playing aggressive, you are playing on the offense. Reason being is because the only thing that you can do is do your best to be as alert as possible and to be able to land your shots first. Even though your shots may be delayed and slower than majority of the low ping players, if you are playing more aggressive, if you are playing more on the offense, more often than not, you are going to aim and shoot your shots first compared to the enemy players. If you play too passively and too defensively, yeah, you can throw tactics in the situation, but the thing is, anytime that a movement player that is lower ping than you comes on the offense and you are not ready for that, and you are just holding angles and waiting to see them before you shoot, by the time you actually see them, they would have already put a couple of bullets into you, just because of the nature of us having high ping. So like I said, if you have high ping, you need to play as aggressive as possible. One thing that can also help your situation is when you are building your weapons and your attachments for your weapons, focus and prioritize ADS and sprint to fire. Yes, there is recoil control, but try to have that as a secondary, because the more that you can make yourself mobile, the faster you can ADS, the faster you can sprint to fire. And nonetheless, this applies for low ping players as well, but especially if you're a high ping player, if you don't have a server connected with you and you are always running with 60 ms and above when it comes to your connection, the faster you can get your gun up to aim, the faster you can stop sprinting and getting your gun ready to fire first, more often than not, you are going to be finishing the last bullet compared to the lower enemy ping. At the end of the day, high ping is just the nature of playing in a state that is far from a server. Unfortunately, it doesn't matter how expensive of an internet you have, it doesn't matter if you have a $10,000 PC rig. Unfortunately, because of your sheer geographical distance from a Call of Duty server, the most that you can get for your ping is the most that will generally show all the time, and you can't get any lower than that. And that's just what it is. Second question is, how do I find the right attachments and know that I'm using the right ones? Now, this one is a very nuanced question because it really depends on your playstyle. If you're an aggressive type of player, there's attachments for that. And if you are a tactical player, there's attachments for that. But more often than not, a lot of these attachments overlap just because these attachments also hold other stats and aspects that both playstyles can use, such as velocity, recoil control to a certain extent, but it's also the type of recoil control and the type of attachments in regards to whether it be a red dot, iron sight, or scope that determines how you're going to use that weapon. So let's start looking at these attachments and see what stats are being prioritized for an aggressive build. So let's start with the Headwind Long Barrel. Right here you can see it looks like damage range and velocity is the only thing that's emphasized here. Not recoil control, not handling, accuracy, nothing like that. Now let's move on to the muzzle, the Second Tread 40. Reason why I chose this for my personal pick is it has a 22% recoil gun kick. Now if you don't know, recoil gun kick is visual recoil control. I don't think a lot of players connect the two, but yes, if you can increase the recoil gun kick percentage, that is why you can see that with some of these RAM builds, it almost looks like the iron sight does not even move, as if they have ultimate recoil control. Because a lot of times when they build their weapons, they emphasize recoil gun kick over horizontal recoil control or vertical recoil control. Now let's move on to the underbarrel. The Heavy Bruin Support Grip. Reason why this is picked, same thing. Recoil gun kick percentage control is increased. Horizontal recoil control is increased. Vertical recoil is not really a problem because with vertical recoil, it is very easy to counter it. You're either pulling down on the mouse or pulling down on the thumbstick. But horizontal recoil control is usually countered by strafing left or right. And moving over to the stock, and reason why this is commonly used is if you look at the stats on this one, 20% recoil gun kick. That is why if you stack all these percentages up, when you shoot this weapon off, so I'm going to shoot it off right over here, it almost looks like the recoil is non-existent. You see that iron sight, it is not moving at all. You barely see it move. And that's why a lot of people, when they look at the kill cam, they're like, you must be using Cronus, or you must be using something, because that recoil is crazy. It's like you have none. It's because they build their weapons like this. Now moving on to the Ram 7 build as if you were a tactical player. Now some of these attachments do overlap just because I generally enjoy those stats and I want that to be for my weapon. But if you look over here, a lot of the things that you can adjust, you can either go with the 40 or 60. Reason why is because that ADS and Sprint to Fire, because you're fighting from a distance, you are not trying to move fast. You are just trying to hold angles, assume routes, and catch them by surprise. And that is why ADS and Sprint to Fire is not prioritized. So go up with the 60 round, it's going to be okay. One of the things that is different though is instead of running iron sights, I did do a scope. Now a lot of people will use either the 2.5 Corio Eagle's Eye, or if they have it attached, a lot of people like to use the JAK glassless optic. I personally like the glassless optic because this gives a bigger range horizontally as well as vertically. If you look at other red dot scopes like the Reflex Slate and the MK3, those ones will either be wide horizontal but closed vertical, or a wide vertical but a small horizontal, and I'll show you here in just a minute. But if you look at the rest of the attachments, we still use the Cronen Headwind Long Barrel. Reason why certain attachments overlap, like I said, it's because I want, and most other players want, that bullet velocity. Look at that. Damage range increase and 25% bullet velocity. That is a lot, and I don't mind risking my sprint to fire speed in order to have that velocity. One thing that it did change though is the muzzle. Now the reason why I use the Cronen OP44 compared to the, I believe I used the Second Tread 40, is because if you look at the Cronen 40, it prioritizes vertical and horizontal, and it takes away some of the recoil gun kick. Because with the recoil gun kick, we don't need that anymore because we are not running iron sight. We are running a scope. And because of that, I want to focus more on vertical recoil control and horizontal recoil control. So I want to show you here, this is the glass-like optic. Look how clean that is. It is very wide horizontally and wide vertically. So it gives me a big open picture when I'm trying to laser down targets. But like I said, because we don't need recoil gun kick because we're not running iron sight, the visual recoil we don't need to worry about. It's really about controlling it as it fires, right? So because of the strong recoil and vertical, we're gonna be fine. Next question is, what perks should I be using? Now, referring it back to the previous question, it really depends on your playstyle, whether you're a tactical or aggressive player. So let's start with being a tactical player, okay? With tactical, my personal recommendations would be Sleight of Hand, Mountaineer, Tempered, and Combat Scout. Now, two things do overlap on both of these, whether you're a movement player or a tactical player, is Tempered, because the amount of time that you need to use to plate up from 0 plates to 3 especially in a gunfight, is way too long. So I hate that time. That's why I want to reduce that time using the tempered perk, where I only have to fill up on 2 plates to get full armor. One perk that is different as a tactical player that I like to add is Combat Scout. Now, reason why I love Combat Scout is if you are playing from a distance, right, and you are shooting from long range, especially for enemy team that is pushing you, anytime that you tag them with a bullet, you are getting a live ping, not just for yourself but for your team too. That way you can keep on target with where they are going and where they are moving. So even if they start to throw smokes, as long as you get that one tap in, you can see the ping through the smokes. Little tip there. But that's the reason why I like to run Combat Scout if I am playing a bit more tactical. And then I like to put Mountaineer there as a way to escape in very hot situations. So if you are sniping on top of a building, or if you're trying to hold a certain point and you need to dig out of there, and the only way to get out of there is by jumping out of the window or out of the building, at least you don't have to worry about fall damage. So if you're an aggressive player, for me personally anyway, these are the perks that I would suggest and use: is Sleight of Hand, Double Time, Tempered, and Ghost. Sleight of Hand, of course, reload faster. Double Time is when you are in a close range gunfight scenario, you want to have that speed and you don't have to worry about losing your attack sprint duration so many times. Tempered, of course, if you are armor broke and you need to recover fast, you need the 2 plates. And then also Ghost. I switched out Ghost instead. People usually run Resolute because Resolute gives them a bonus speed if they take any enemy gunfire, right? But I think Ghost is super beneficial, especially if you run Resurgence, because anytime the enemy kills any of your teammates, instead of seeing yourself as a ping on the map, since you're using Ghost, your ping doesn't show up. So even in a high team fight scenario, they don't know where you are, especially if you're the last player alive and you need to dip out. At least if you run Ghost, they're not gonna know where you're dipping out, so that way you're waiting and retreating until the rest of the team comes back in. Fourth question is, how do I avoid COD timing? Now, I like this question because the answer is you can't avoid COD timing. COD timing is very unpredictable. The only thing that you can really do is just react accordingly. Now, each scenario is very different, and with Call of Duty there's so many different scenarios that can happen. You could either be holding down an angle and they come right at the moment you don't hold down that angle. You could be landing on a loadout and unfortunately there's an enemy team camping the loadout. Just know that if you are trying to evaluate after you die in that situation because of COD timing, to reflect and see if you controlled every variable that you can control, and if you did everything right and you still died, it's, you know, don't take it to heart. It is what it is, and I think players who get too hung up on it, that's why they don't enjoy the game personally. Last question is, what's more of a priority when downing an enemy while I have a down team? Now this one is very situational based. It depends, right? If you're running trios, if you're running quads, it depends on how many teammates are down. Now if you're the only player left and say the other 2 or 3 are already down, you unfortunately are at a very big disadvantage in regards to the outcome of you getting out of there alive or winning that gunfight with that team that you're fighting. So if you're the only one alive and everyone else is down, I recommend dipping. If you know that you can comfortably, knowing the situation, can handle your 1v2s or 1v3s, great, try. But if you're not that comfortable and if you're not that confident with it, dip, let them die, and unfortunately just wait until Resurgence brings them back in. Or if you're playing regular Battle Royale, you're just gonna have to spend the time regaining, or hopefully they win their gulag. But if you're in a more positive situation, say, you know, you only have one down teammate, but you are in mid-fight, it really depends on the proximity of the fight. If you are fighting on building to building, right? If your teammate goes down, you don't have to focus on enemy fire, because they're not, unless they're very aggressive and they have a very easy way to push, say like a zip line that goes across, or you know, they have a way to just access you very fast, then that's very situational based. But say if it's building to building, they can't access you that fast. If that player goes down, revive that player. You don't have to worry about the enemy team pushing, because more often than not, they're gonna stay on that building until they have better odds of pushing. That's why I said if they have better odds of pushing, say 2 are down or 3 are down compared to just the 1, if 3 are down, you either better get 1 up fast enough, because at that moment, that team of 3 or that team of 4, if they don't have anybody that's down, they are going to push you 9 times out of 10. So those are the 5 questions, guys, that my casual Call of Duty teammate asked me, and I hope that the answers that I gave, if you are a casual Call of Duty player, that this kind of gave you a little bit more insight. And if you already know this, great, awesome, that's already gonna help your gameplay. But if you don't know and you learned something today, please drop that subscribe button down below, hit that like on the video, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Take care.